We're gonna look at how non-stop exploit, leaked code, and a completely overwhelmed dev team define the end for this game. But before we get into all that, we have to rewind to the golden years to see how a game too big for its own good ruled the entire platform. This is Rise and Fall of Apocalypse Rising. Let's think back to the early 2010s. What did Roblox actually feel like? If you were even on the platform back then, you'd know exactly what I mean. For the longest time, the front page was dominated by simple obbies, basic tycoons, or classic sword fighting arenas. They were fun, but they were quite simple. Games you'd play for maybe like 30 minutes at most before getting bored. But then, Gus and Zoller dropped an absolute bomb onto the platform, Apocalypse Rising. This was nothing like the Roblox we knew. Inspired heavily by the massive Daisy hype at the time, Apoc didn't feel like a blocky minigame, it felt like a legitimate standalone title. Suddenly, kids on Roblox were dropped into a high-stakes open world where you had to scavenge for food and water just to stay alive, all while hunting for that military loot. And think about how intense that was for a kid at the time. If you died, your entire inventory was wiped. Every single player encounter was a test. Do you try to make a friend, or do you kill them before they kill you and take everything that you just spent the last 2 hours grinding for? And that is exactly what made the game a staple for millions of us. The growth was explosive. By the end of 2012, APOC pulled in nearly 5 million visits, climbing all the way to the 14th most visited spot on the entire platform. By 2013, it completely took over, officially winning the 2013 Blocky Game of the Year award. The game was absolutely glued to the front page, and Roblox was constantly flexing it on their official blogs as the pinnacle of what their engine could do, and the momentum only snowballed from there. Personally, I was like obsessed with this game. I played this game all the time, and when I wasn't playing it, I was on YouTube watching fucking montages and squad wipes. The community that formed around it was just legendary. It practically launched the careers of creators who defined an era of Roblox content creators like Bandites and of course the early days of Albert stuff. For a game to build an ecosystem this massive before the global modern boom of Roblox itself was nothing short of insane. But right at the absolute peak of its success, there was something wrong with the game. You see, Apocalypse Rising had a fatal flaw built straight into the game. It was entirely client-side. Back in 2012, Roblox didn't have script security. The game was built on an old network structure where the server trusted the player's computer completely. So if your local PC sent a script to the game saying, "Hey, I just spawned 1,000 of drum mags and I got infinite health," the server just nodded and said, "Sounds good to me." By 2014 and 2015, public hacking tools, DLL injectors, and exploit scripts became widely accessible to literally anyone with an internet connection. And that game that we all loved, it turned into pure anarchy. And at this time, you couldn't join a single lobby without encountering some kind of exploiter. People were getting one-shotted through walls, and hackers would abuse any broken admin tool there was. They could teleport the entire server into a kill box, wiping out hours of your hard-earned loot in just like 2 seconds. Then there was also lag switchers, which they would just like unplug their internet, connect it back in after they killed you, and I guess somehow that worked and they would just collect all your gear. Yeah, I'm not really sure why people did this, but it worked. The core loop of the game, the tension, the survival, the risk, was just completely gone. Now, Gus and Sharksy didn't just sit back and watch the creation burn, they fought like hell. Between 2014 and 2016, this whole thing just turned into an exhausting game of digital whack-a-mole. They finally managed to stop people from no-clipping through solid walls, but the code was a giant house of cards. Because the game was built on that ancient 2012 engine, fixing one single exploit almost always broke 3 completely unrelated game mechanics. It got so ridiculous that during a Halloween event, simply trying to add a little toggle button for the UI completely shattered the entire weapon system. But also around this time, Roblox rolled out a massive engine security update called Filtering Enabled. This was supposed to be the ultimate shield to protect games from forcing everything to run strictly on the server side. For the rest of the platform, it was a savior. For Apocalypse Rising, it was the absolute death sentence. The game's most fundamental systems, like how zombies tracked players and how loot randomly spawned on the ground, were so deeply tangled up in the old client-side methods that forcing a full filtering enabled update was mechanically impossible. By October 2016, Gus had to face reality. He announced that the game was moving to legacy support. No more updates. No more major anti-cheat overhauls. The code was just unfixable. As the official game began to decay, desperate for a cheat-free experience, legitimate players fled the main game to play copycat titles, or completely uncopylocked bootlegs of APOC itself. While these copies promised a clean slate, they ultimately just diluted the brand and scattered the community across dozens of poorly made cash grabs. Many of these copycats were built entirely on APOC's assets that had leaked online. Instead of spending his time brainstorming new features, Gus was forced to play copyright lawyer, spending hours filling DMCA takedowns just to protect his property from asset thieves. And this is where the community behavior crossed the line into absolute absurdity. The entitlement got so deep that there was players going on a change.org to launch public blogs and petitions. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, there's one here and then this other one. These were like actual unironic petitions demanding that Gus make the game completely uncopylocked so the public could just take the assets and use them freely. It's so dumb. They're just trying to force the dev team to force fix the game. The engine updates breaking the game was entirely out of their control, but the community was treating the developers like they owned them. The momentum was completely gone. The servers were a graveyard of exploiters, the developers were burnt out, and the community was bitterly divided. It just shattered. And that just brings us to today, the bitter truth that a lot of old players still to this day refuse to accept that Apocalypse Rising just had to die. When the technical foundation of a game is completely rotted out, you can't just keep slapping band-aids on it forever. Yet looking back at these petitions and subreddits and the old forums, the response wasn't understanding. It was completely toxic. People loved to complain. They dragged Gus, they made fun of Apocalypse Rising 2, and they acted like the developers were just being lazy. But let's be completely real for a second. What did people actually want Gus and the dev team to do? Did they want them to spend the rest of their lives being miserable, trapped in a cycle of fixing an unfixable game? Did they want them to waste 40 hours a week playing whack-a-mole against script injectors, only for a new exploit to drop 5 minutes later and break everything all over again? That's not game development. It's just a hostage situation. The reality of Roblox is that the platform evolved. The way Roblox is headed makes it fundamentally impossible to natively sustain a game built in the golden era on 2012 code. You can't run a vintage car in a modern spaceship and expect it to fly. Shifting focus to Apocalypse Rising 2 was not a betrayal. It was the only logical move. It was a fresh start built from ground up with server-side security so the exploiter pandemic couldn't happen ever again. And honestly, APOC 2 gets a horribly unfair rap. If you look past the nostalgia goggles and look at the actual game, it's not that bad. I actually play Apocalypse Rising 2 and I don't mind it. It's not better than APOC 1, but it's not worse. And of course there is exploiters, but you're gonna find that everywhere. There's definitely a lot less though, and I'll still hop on this game with some of my friends and play it for hours. It's a different experience. It's the same title but a different game. And at the end of the day, it's not hard to feel bad for the team. They were just a group of passionate creators who wanted to build something that they love, only to get relentlessly stomped on from both sides by malicious exploiters and by a selfish antagonizing community demanding they perform literal miracles. At the end of the day, Apocalypse Rising isn't just some broken game lost in a Roblox library. It's a huge piece of childhood for millions of us. Before the game came out, Roblox was just a place for simple tycoons and basic sword fights. Gus and Zoller proved that you could actually build a real hardcore survival game on a blocky platform. It gave us insane adrenaline rushes and started the careers of some of the biggest YouTubers we watch today. Yeah, the game had to die so Roblox could move forward, but those old memories aren't going anywhere. Anyways, I want to hear from you guys. If you played Apocalypse Rising back in the day, what was your favorite memory?